Cool, welcome to the second episode in the Overdose Peak Season Power Series. We've carefully designed the 6-part series for those looking to elevate their peak season game. In each episode, we're here to share functional and actionable insights, and we encourage your curiosity and any questions you might have. Today, my co-host Sam and I will be chatting about how to use your data to really maximize conversions for peak season and beyond. So what you can expect from the next 20 minutes or so is focused highlights, followed by a short Q&A at the end, and kind of a final summary of the main action points that you can take away with you. For today's topic, we'll be walking you through how we like to approach setting up a user funnel in GA4, kind of benchmarks for a few key segments so you can get an idea of where you sit, and across the funnel, key tips to ensure a frictionless customer experience to maximize those conversions. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Sam to talk more in depth around that user funnel.
Perfect, thanks Shan. There we go, now you can see both of us. Cool. So to start off with, we will talk about how to set up an e-commerce funnel. So basically, when we're talking about conversion rate, all it is the ratio of your traffic, so your users or sessions to how many purchases you've got. However, in between landing on a website and purchasing, you do have multiple friction points that customers can encounter along the way. So if you don't know where those friction points are or how much of an issue they are, how do you know where to actually best focus your efforts for maximum return? The good news is that you likely already have a treasure trove of data in your GA4 account that you're not utilizing. So let's go through how to create your own e-commerce funnel report. So in GA4, what you want to do is go to the left-hand menu, click on the Explore section here, and then click on Funnel Exploration tile at the top. What this does is it opens up the Explorations feature. This is a feature in GA4 that allows you to really deep dive into your data and create custom visualizations so that you can gain insights into what's actually happening on your website. So when you click this, you're going to get this default generic report that is created. So this funnel report shows the number of users who have completed or abandoned a predefined set of steps. So in this case, what we're seeing is the users who have entered the website, viewed a page, and then purchased. So the bars up the top here visually represent that, how many users are proceeding to each of the subsequent steps. And the table down below here breaks down the actual numbers of users and the percentage of users who either complete or abandon each step. So you can see here, might be a little bit small, but out of the 24,000 users who viewed a page on the site, we had only 358 actually complete the purchase. So that is a completion rate of 1.5% or an abandonment rate of 98.5%. So the next step here is to actually customize this. So we are actually showing you the steps for an e-commerce site. So if we look over there on the left, there's a pencil icon. We're going to click on that to change up our steps. So here what we're doing is opening up the funnel steps editing screen. We want to recreate the path that we expect users to take throughout the website. So we do this by selecting on the event that you want to choose for each step, such as view item or add to cart, etc. So you can use the three dots on the top left to create, or to add or remove steps from your funnel. And you can have up to 10 steps in your report. So that allows you to see where users are dropping off before getting to your final conversion stage. Okay, so if you're on an e-commerce site and your GA4 setup follows the recommended naming convention from Google, you can actually just follow the event names that I've got here and reference that screenshot on the right. So this is the standard format that will suit a lot of e-com stores. You don't actually have to do anything here. Just a note on the events. So view item, add to cart, begin checkout, and purchase are all pretty self-explanatory. The one that might not be familiar to you is session start. So this one is a default event created by GA4, and this is automatically generated on your site whenever a user enters the website. So this is triggered regardless of what page a user enters on. It could be the home page, it could be directly on the PDP, it could be some blog content. Whatever page they land on, they will be captured in this first step. And what we're looking for is how they proceed throughout the rest of the funnel. A small note here, so you can feel free to change this format around to fit your unique customer journey. However, I would advise keeping steps to the basics until you have that more insight into the major friction points. So you want to have a baseline of where your users are actually experiencing friction at this point. If you add in more steps, you start to draw away focus from what's happening by splitting up your data too much. So baby steps first, and then once you've got a good understanding there, you can start to customize it even further. So once we've done that and we've hit save, we ended up with a beautiful funnel report that should look something like this. So we can now see where the biggest areas of drop-off are and where small improvements could actually have a big impact on improving your conversion rate. For example, in this report here, you might look at the numbers and be like, okay, my biggest area of focus should be on the PDP. So we can see here that only 22% of users are adding to cart from the PDP for a 78% abandonment rate. But if I look at that, I'd actually go to the first step as the biggest area of concern. So if you look at this visually, you can see that the biggest drop-off is happening from session start to PDP view. So it's a 63% abandonment rate, which is smaller than the PDP view stage. But if we look at it in terms of absolute numbers, we start off with 47,000 users, but 30,000 of them never actually make it onto the PDP. So if we can get more of those users onto the PDP and not abandoning at that first stage, we will likely see a flow-on effect throughout the funnel that improves the overall conversion rate without even touching the rest of these stages here. The last step for our funnel report is an optional one, but one that I highly, highly recommend. And it is creating a segment of users who are engaged. And by what we mean by that is that they viewed at least 2 pages over the time period that you've set. So this means that any user who's only viewed 1 page will be excluded from your funnel report. And the reason why we do this is to make the data less noisy. One, it removes any bot traffic, which can dramatically skew your numbers. So even if you just have a single bot attack during the time period you're looking at, it can make it seem as though your drop-off rate is much higher than it actually is. The second thing is that it actually focuses our attention on the users who do not bounce. So with the funnel report being all about users who are engaged and where they're experiencing friction, we want to remove the bounced users from our funnel to get a clearer understanding of where that friction is actually occurring. And then the final slide that I've got here is just looking at the numbers. It can be really hard to tell whether a drop-off rate is within the normal range or something that you should be concerned about and take immediate action. So what we've done here is aggregated data across a couple of different industries and given you an idea of the average drop-off rates for each stage in this table. I've also included the average order value across each of those accounts that we've aggregated there. And that's valuable context to see why your numbers might be different and whether you should be looking at higher or lower ranges. So for example, if you are a fashion retailer selling $1,000 dresses, your drop-off rates would understandably be a little bit higher than what is shown here. Just to note that this data covers a 3-month period to even out any sale activity that might have happened over that time, and is filtered by the engaged users segment that I talked about in the previous slide. So now that we've got our data at hand, how can we go about improving those numbers?
Thanks, Sam. So now that we've got that base point, it's all about understanding those friction points at all of those key kind of touch points through that user or e-commerce funnel. Before we dig into it, I just really wanted to mention, like, yes, we might be talking about peak season, but there's actually some stats coming out that a lot of users and customers use Cyber Weekend and these peak season kind of sale periods for actually buying gifts for the upcoming season holiday. So now's a great time to kind of actually start thinking ahead and making sure we have those kind of dedicated paths for a customer to kind of explore as well. And that can be stuff that's really simple, as much as like just having those gift kind of category or landing pages, and that we are having those clearly articulated in mega menus and navigation as well. And then looking at, if we do have gift categories, can we look to kind of curate them a little bit more? So like for the likes of gift for him, gift for fathers, or even for those who are a little bit more price conscious or they've got a budget in mind, just kind of highlighting that, hey, look, we do have options to suit every kind of budget and that kind of gifting experience as well. And then starting off, as Sam said, session start is a little bit ambiguous, and that it's not necessarily the homepage being that first point of contact for users, especially depending on your marketing and your email campaigns. You are going to get a lot of people landing on potentially the category page and specifically the product page, especially from the likes of Google Shopping. So let's not put all of our eggs in one basket and make sure that that prominent sale messaging is scattered throughout that user journey. As you can see on the right, I've got an example from Sansbeast. They do a really good job on that home page, highlighting that they've got a sale that's 20% off sick. But when you kind of drill down onto that category page, it kind of loses its intensity. And the only real mention is a small little product tag at the top right saying 20% off at checkout, meaning that the discount's not even been applied to that product pricing on the tiles. And then when we actually land on the product page, there's no mention whatsoever. As well as that kind of mega menu, it's not as kind of highlighted that there is such a big sale going with such a good discount for these guys. And another kind of point I wanted to touch on and is just making sure when we are doing our kind of graphics for those kind of key touch points that we are considering that mobile viewpoint and that all of that messaging isn't cut off. And it might be actually be good to have a look in GA4 what your kind of typical device viewpoint is, so you can kind of actually really test what majority of your users are going to be seeing. Because with the likes of the Sansbeast example, that actually the discount is at the bottom of the graphic, and you might be in risk of that actually being cut off on smaller devices as well. And so kind of with that narrative, things that we can kind of A/B split test or look to improve during that kind of session start is actually trialing the creative. Like, what's actually resonating with your customers? Is it focusing on that discount, or do you guys have more of an aspirational kind of customer base and they want to be excited with the imagery shown as well? And then again, just looking at, like, do we strip back all of the fluff around? I think we're back. Sorry, it turns out Sam's laptop didn't quite like being on live, but we managed to port over to mine. Not too sure where I got cut off, but again, just wanted to reiterate around testing actually what that discount messaging is and kind of that placement of the messaging as well. Cool. And then obviously session start covers a lot more, so kind of focusing on that category and that landing page as well. It's all about making sure we're making it easier for a customer to find products easier in that kind of navigation path. So again, making sure you have filters that are clearly able for a user to find and that we have them on particular on mobile to be sticky. The example of Glassons, they kind of do a poor job of their filters. In general, their filters aren't sticky on scroll. And then actually when you open it up, for me, especially in peak season and sale, the first thing I want to do as a user is to refine down to my size. Except when I open up the filters, it's not even in that first page view. I actually have to scroll through a bunch of irrelevant filters till I can go and select my size as well. So it's kind of, yes, having the option to filter, but kind of think a little bit more logically on that ordering of the filters as well. But in comparing it with the likes of Dotty and how they kind of go through that kind of filtering flow, they've actually opted to streamline it even further without the user having to rely on opening filters. They have quick links on their category pages, so it's easy for me, just shop sale by size and off I go without having to kind of locate that filtering as well. And I think they also do a neat job of when you are opening that mega menu, drilling down into sale, and already you could shop by product, you could shop by price, shop by size, and if you just really want to have a nosy at everything, you can shop all sale as well. So again, it's just making sure we are streamlining to what we think users are looking to drill down on the site as well. Oh, it's my laptop. Sweet. Cool. And then kind of other ideas or ways that you could kind of test to see what those friction points are specifically to that category pages. And if you do have this functionality or the kind of collateral to accommodate this, is playing around with a 1-column or versus 2-column approach. For a lot of other custom clients, sometimes if you do have that 2-column approach, you actually can't visually see the product, and it's a little bit hard to digest what's different about this black dress compared to this other black dress apart from price. So trialing out to see if a 1-column kind of brings your items and your brand to life a little bit better. And then the same with using clear cuts or flat lays versus those model and lifestyle images. Again, using Sanspace as an example, you kind of, with them using the clear cuts, you don't really get a taste for the size of the bag. Like how big is that archive tote in comparison to the Universo? But having that lifestyle imagery really kind of shows you how it sits on the body. So I have an understanding of what bag is really going to suit my needs and not look horrendously large on me as well. And then again, like that Dotty example, is just making sure we have those quick links on that page right at the top and kind of experimenting with maybe it's size for some of you guys, or maybe it's looking at those different price points or subcategories as well. And then again, a lot of you guys are probably paying quite a lot for product recommendation tools and the like. So again, just making sure you're getting the most bang for your buck and kind of trialing throughout that user journey which ones you are showcasing, whether that's best sellers in sale versus new in sale, and kind of the placement of those blocks as well. And don't be scared to kind of stack them on top of each other. You don't have to have like a fancy little tabbed approach like Hair House on the side as well. The more we can kind of get those recommendations and keep a user in that kind of discovery state, the better. And then moving on to view, item, and add to cart, which is primarily that product page. It's really about putting yourself in that customer's shoes and really having a think about what information would they need to feel confident to go ahead with the purchase, especially considering a lot of them will be bypassing your kind of homepage where you might be talking about your brand USPs a little bit more. So they're a little bit more fresh to the brand or what product or your offering is. So again, like we chatted about, making sure that overall discount is prominent. And then if you do have payment options, making sure they're like very loud and proud on the page and as close to that price as possible. And then a huge kind of friction point for a lot of customers is actually understanding what shipping options you guys have and what that cost is. And a really great example of that is actually on Max Embarkers. You've got the option to ship it to me, and right next to that they state that it's free delivery in New Zealand over X amount. So a user doesn't have to go look for an accordion to drill down into that information or be taken to a shipping cost page. Either we're keeping them in that kind of user funnel and on the product page near that clear add to bag button as well. And again, it's just kind of thinking about what other key information does a user need to feel comfortable that this is the product for them. So if you're in fashion, it's just ensuring that you have size guides that are clear and easy to find and are also relevant. And then again, same with product guides. If perhaps you sell furniture, just making sure the dimensions and how that product is packaged and how it would be received is clear as well. It's kind of answering all of those questions a user might have when they are browsing. And then some kind of A/B split testing for this kind of section is, you don't necessarily have to do this during peak season. It could be something you set up straight away, but looking at where you place that email or newsletter sign up, we kind of test with a lot of our clients having messaging underneath the CTA, especially if it has a discount already attached to it. So that way, if we're not capturing them with an actual sale, at least we're incentivizing them to join the newsletter, and then we can hopefully kind of get them back through those flows as well. And then you can also A/B split test the email discount given to see what gives you the best kind of bang for your buck as well. Another one to kind of test is the reviews and where they sit on the page, and then making sure if you do have really good reviews on most of your products that they're kind of highlighted in that main e-com section to really see if that kind of user-generated content is giving users that reassurance that they are buying the right size, that this piece of furniture is going to last the distance, all of those kind of questions that potentially they feel like you as a brand might not be willing to admit on the page as well. And then have fun, play around with kind of that hierarchy and the structure of the page as well. You can even A/B split test if having shipping information displayed on default helps lift that conversion rate or getting people into the next stage of the funnel, and as well as potentially if you do have user-generated content in terms of images and Instagram and that sort of stuff, having those higher up the page too, just to allow a user to really feel excited and see it in real life as well. Cool. And then the next one, add to cart, begin to checkout, is primarily talking about that mini cart. And really the whole ethos here is just keep it simple and laser focused. Most users or customers are actually using their mini carts as a way to shortlist items, especially when you're on sale. You're adding a bunch there and then you'll kind of go back and use it as a means to refine your order. So you want it to be easy for them to easily scan, as well as having a clear kind of total as well, so they don't have to second guess how much this order is going to be. They know how much shipping, they qualify for free shipping, all of that good stuff. And I think an important part is to just make sure we don't have any pesky pop-ups when a user kind of enters the later stages of the funnel. You'll see in this Genora example at the top left, they've got their newsletter popping out over the mini cart, which is a bit of a friction point. And then again, I would also be checking that your live chat bubble isn't really overlapping any key sections as well. And then looking at things that we can trial with the mini carts is actually looking at shipping thresholds. There's quite a cool app specifically for Shopify called ShipsCount, and you can test free shipping thresholds to see how that affects your average order value and also your profit, and then kind of experiment with flat rates, whether that's $5 versus $8, to see what that impact on conversion has as well. And then again, look to see how you are utilizing upsells, if you do have upsells, and kind of that placement and what you are showcasing as well. And then kind of really having a think of, because we have such low real estate, especially on mobile, are those upsells actually visible? If we look at that Genora example, they have their best sellers above that checkout, which is fine if you've only got one product in your cart. But what happens if there's two? Would a user even see those bestsellers, or is it a little bit confusing because it looks like they've added So Whippy to their cart too? So it's, again, even though you might think you've got it in the best place, let's test it just to make sure, that we're confident with it as well. And then kind of the big one is that begin to check out and hopefully getting a complete purchase. So I've got a little bit of a stats of the main friction points when it does come to checkouts. And I would just like to iterate, if you're on Shopify, you're probably already ahead of the curve, and it's a little bit easier to narrow down. If you do have a significant drop-off, it's most likely not going to be that you have a long and complicated checkout, and that errors shouldn't be occurring as well. So as you can see, it's actually more likely the things around unexpected shipping costs, that delivery times, or like the delivery options aren't what they were expected, rather than anything based on like the user's end, which is that credit card declined and things like that. So we kind of have a little bit of a, best practice checklist when it comes to what you should and shouldn't be doing in the checkout. But again, one of the key ones is if you don't have a guest checkout option, you definitely should. And just to make sure, if you do go ahead with that change, that it still does look like it's a guest checkout, and that it's not kind of like, oh, I'm putting in my email and I'm going to have to make an account there. And then another key one is just ensuring that that address validation works, and that if a user does click one, they can still edit their address too, because sometimes you'll find, I know I run into issues with my address that the one in Google is not quite the one that I want to be selecting as well. So I might need to tweak it as needed. And a really huge one that a lot of people forget is actually that field validation. So if a user thinks they've added everything correctly, they scroll down and they click continue, that we're actually having not only messaging on the fields that they got wrong or might have missed, but actually messaging above that button to say that they've missed something, so they know that they need to scroll up and tweak. Otherwise, if you click that button, and you might think that nothing's happened, and it's a little bit of a bug there as well. And then another big one to kind of reduce the amount of overload or the data a user has to put in is just making sure we are only asking for the required details there as well. And again, I think as all of the steps in the funnels, just making sure those clear delivery times and costs isn't going to be a surprise when we get to the checkout there too. And another interesting one, and it might not apply to everyone, but if you do have some form of donations or something that you might want a user to add to their cart, just make sure it's not selected by default. Example I have actually is from Offends. They had automatically added a carbon footprint offset to my order, and it was $5. But the placement of it was at the very bottom of the checkout. So when I went, the first thing in my page view was like, oh, my total order is $5 more than I expected. What the hell's going on? And I actually couldn't figure out what it was. And it wasn't until I scrolled all the way down to the bottom that I realized that automatically opted me into something. And they've kind of taken away that kind of feel-good sense of, yeah, I'm going to like help the planet, let me donate $5, where now I'm kind of on the back foot and like, oh, well, you kind of took that choice away from me and I'm not too sure how I feel about it. Hair House actually does a really good job of donations at checkout. They've got it a little bit further up, so it's actually part of the checkout rather than hidden in that order summary. And they kind of explain a bit more of like why you should be donating or rounding up your total there as well. And then another key thing is just making sure if we've got links to return policy and shipping, that we clearly put all of that information in those modals without taking users to a separate page there as well. Because once they're in the checkout, we want to keep them there, right? And then I think once you've kind of gone through and you're still not quite sure if there is anything that's really obvious to you while testing your checkout, is actually utilize user recordings and stuff like Hotjar or Microsoft Clarity. You can have a look at rage clicks and kind of, now that we know like potentially the checkout is that main drop-off point, we can have a little bit more clarity and spend time kind of hunting to see what actually that problem is. And then don't forget that you have quite a lot of data outside of GA4 too, like revisit customer inquiries or even like kind of 1 to 2 star reviews, no matter if that's product reviews or kind of business reviews as well. It's a great way to kind of get an insight gleam on what customers think and those friction points as well that might not necessarily be captured from that point of view in GA4. I think that's all we had to go through. We'll just leave a little bit of time. If there is any questions, just pop them in the chat and then me and Sam will answer.
Oh, no questions so far. So, yeah. Cool. I think we'll just do we'll end it there. We've already gone a little bit over time due to our technical difficulties. So yeah, thank you guys for joining us on our episode in the Overdose Peak Season Power Series. So today we've discussed how to create and track your funnel to know where you should be focusing your efforts for maximum return, areas of optimization that allow you to maximize the impact of your sale periods, and lots of ideas to go away and A/B test so you can start a journey of continuous improvement. So we've carefully designed this 6-part series for you e-com professionals looking to elevate your peak season game at pace. So share the links around the team and join us next week for episode 3 in the Peak Season Power series, where Biggie and Leslie will be talking about SEM and SEO success. Thank you, everyone.